Good afternoon. As young adults in college, we're in our trial run to the real world. We're over the age of 18, yet under the age of 25, and have the opportunity and security of riding out our time on our parents' healthcare insurance just a little longer.
Now that school started, I need to submit my proof of immunization, but I can't even begin to think where it would be in the huge stack of papers at my parents' house.
For me, I change my glasses every year, and I can never find out what my prescription is because I've changed my providers so many times, I don't know who to call.
I lost my vaccine card 2 days after getting it. I know I'm not the only one.
As you can see, we all have different problems. However, they stem from the same core root issue of fragmented record keeping that's preventing us from getting the care that we need. And I'm sure you all have dealt with similar situations. I'm joined here by my team today, KT, Ruben, Gabriel, and myself, to share a solution that Dropbox can help make. Introducing DropDoc. DropDoc has two main components, telehealth and localization, which are going to leave a lasting impact. Now, how did we get to this solution? Well, you can see that we first conducted a market analysis, then dove into our strategy, and lastly, our implementation of this method. Now, we decided to focus on two core areas for our market analyses, that being cloud computing and telehealth. Looking further into cloud computing, you can see that Dropbox's main competitor is Google Drive. Google Drive, in the early stages of the pandemic, had 1.2 billion users, while Dropbox had 700 million. Now, with the COVID pandemic and everyone shifting to more of a digital type of work lifestyle, you can see that Google Drive saw an increase to 2 billion, which was absolutely crazy. Now, surely enough, this was an industry-wide trend, right? Well, Dropbox went from 700 million to 710 million. 710 million? How did Dropbox drop the ball on this opportunity? Now, we also decided to look into other markets that were greatly impacted by COVID-19 to determine a strategy moving forward to prevent that kind of loss in the future. So, we dove into telehealth. You can see here that pre-pandemic, 11% of consumers utilized telehealth. However, that shifted to the current percentage point of 76% who are now comfortable and interested in using telehealth. The market is huge and greatly increasing, serving tremendous opportunity for a partnership. However, there are going to be some key challenges in order to scale. There's a need for better data integration, many laws and regulations surrounding the storage of healthcare information in different countries. Think about the US's HIPAA and that equivalent in other countries, as well as currently telehealth utilizing a variety of smaller storage platforms and it being quite fragmented. Now, this serves as an opportunity for a partnership between telehealth and Dropbox. So what does this kind of competitor landscape look like right now for these digital cloud computing record-keeping companies for healthcare? You can see that we broke it into the large and integrated platforms that are not tailored, which you can see there's a lot there, as well as these small without integration yet super tailored platforms. However, there's a noticeable gap. This serves as a demand for cloud computing platforms that store medical records and are large, integrated, and tailored to local privacy laws. Thus, there is a need for Dropbox.
Awesome. Thank you, Daria. Let's get into the strategy of how we're going to do this. DropDoc involves two prongs, as mentioned before, telehealth and localization. Let's go into telehealth. I am very excited to announce DropDoc, the digital file management for doctor documents. Before I get into what that entails, I want to show you the decision matrix of how we came up to that solution. So based on the 4 pillars that we compared it against, such as impact, profitability, implementation, and globalization, we juggled some ideas that sustain sustainability, features within the app, such as file conversion and payment automation. DropDoc was the best solution. We chose DropDoc as a solution for storage. So, as you know, a lot of the competitors offer a storage platform, but we want to transform Dropbox into a storage service. Obviously, with the world being more digitalized and going into more virtual space, and being in a post-COVID world, we understand the emphasis of storage and how accessible it should be. So digitalizing files for both the back end and the front ends, just as the consumers and the businesses, saves a lot of time and money. Most importantly, Dropbox has the infrastructure for secure capabilities that protects the information of both the medical doctors and the medical patients. So let's talk a little bit more about telehealth as the post-COVID industry. It involves remote healthcare that reduces the surges in hospital that we've seen, as well as exposure to diseases. Here are some of the examples of the telehealth companies that we will be working with. Patients who actually read their health notes from the doctors are more likely to take them as prescribed. And as we can see here, because of the pandemic, telehealth services visits has increased 63 times, going from 850,000 to 52.7 billion. As we mentioned earlier in our previous story in the beginning, that our medical records vary from place to place. So that's why it's so important to have our information where we need it and when we need it. That's why with DropDoc, we're gonna be able to be the sole and first record-keeping management system for these telehealth companies. Let me tell you how it will work. So the providers of these telehealth companies will automatically upload the appointment, medical information, everything you need from your visit straight into your DropDoc account. You can access it anywhere you are, offline, with no cost. And finally, when users and patients are using Dropbox already for their medical needs, they're gonna start using Dropbox for their daily needs and utilize all the other amazing features that Dropbox already has into their daily lives, increasing our B2C sales. So here are some of the key features of DropDoc that I wanna highlight. The uniformity of personal files, auto-updating folders by category. You don't have to make your own documents, name them, anything like that anymore, as well as making it accessible for family members. So I never have to call my mom about what my eye prescription is again. Our key takeaways is our B2B focus allows us to dominate a rising industry while gradually also increasing numbers in our customer sales. That answers the first charge. For the second charge, we differentiate by offering an automated service unlike other competition. And most importantly, we allow equitable healthcare at the tip of your fingertips.
Now that we've gone over our telehealth plan, we will go into the globalization of it. As we know, Dropbox is currently a global company with globally tailored services, but the strengths that it will utilize to lean into growing is becoming globalized, a global company that feels local in every market it operates in. Over 75% of users are currently outside of the US and growing. And currently, Dropbox has had partnerships with SoftBank, Vodafone, and Telmex to diversify their options in the ways they interact with consumers. But most importantly, they're entering new geo-linguistic platforms and markets, which will diversify once again their offerings. As stated by Chen-Li Wang, it's not about the product working. It's the fact that we offer excellent support to solve your problems. That is Dropbox's strength, the ability to solve your problems and offer top-tier customer service in global markets. And what we are trying to focus on is globalizing, making it feel local. And we have been successful in such strategies, as you can see with our increasing revenue year over year with our international markets. Currently, we have learned that consumers choose Dropbox because of our top-tier cloud privacy and data protections. We have received the highest accolade from the International Standard for Organization in demonstrating quality and protection and trust with our customers, something that is essential and priceless in our relationships with them. Currently, as you can see, our data centers are in the United States, Europe, and Asia. We have identified large gaps and potential opportunities to enter the markets of Latin America and Africa, as we've currently not been there or expanded. Thus, we have decided to build new data centers in Manaus, Brazil, and Lagos, Nigeria. That way, we can truly be localized and safely and securely protect our customers' information in their home markets. But the way we will successfully enter these new markets is through being a digital-first company. By having a global integrated workforce that operates in those markets, because of COVID revolutionizing the way we work from working from home, Dropbox can now employ employees all around, enabling us to have a global integrated workforce, and most importantly, having the ability to diversify our talent acquisitions and tap talent and employees in these different markets. And lastly, this would increase greater cultural competencies within our employees and the customers that they serve in their markets. The key takeaways is because of our growing global customer base, this has created opportunities to enter into new markets, and we will successfully enter these markets with our digital-first workforce that will maintain and strengthen our position as a globally trusted company.
All right, so 2 new markets and an entirely new industry sector. This is a pretty ambitious goal, even for a big company like Dropbox. So let's take a look at how this is actually going to look when we implement it. First of all, it's going to take us 1.5 years before we can finally roll this product out to the public, and another 6 months after that before both data centers are finally online. You might notice we've stagnated when we develop these 2 data centers, and there's a reason for that actually too. First, Brazil is a much more favorable place to be developing buildings. If you have the paperwork all in order, you can actually put shovels in the ground the same day that you insert the paperwork. Second, we want to spread out the capital intensity of this project. If we have it all in 1 year, you have to remember Dropbox has other projects going on. If you concentrate it into 1 year, it's cannibalizing those projects. So in an effort to be in the company's best interest, we're spreading it over 2 years while it's in development. Right before the rollout, you also might notice, we're hiring a team of 40 salespeople to make sure when it does roll out, we have demand already in place to hit the ground running. After that, the path is pretty clear for us. There's going to be 2 things that we're going to keep doing over and over: expanding and updating. Expanding to make sure that this product goes integrated into the Dropbox cinematic universe, so to speak. And secondly, updating it, making sure that we're staying in compliance in our respective countries' privacy laws. That's the center of our key advantage here, and we want to make sure that we keep that. Long term into the future, once people have opened up to using Dropbox for their medical records, we can actually start pushing it to physical hospitals too, but that's going to take some time. There's a couple risks that we see involved with this strategy. I want to, in the interest of time, focus on the second one here, the most important: skepticism about data privacy, particularly in a country like Israel, where one of our offices is. In 2020, they passed some draft legislation protecting the use of medical data for research purposes, not for privacy, for research, publicizing it. In order to make sure that people have protected data and doctors can still stay in compliance, we're going to have a cybersecurity team of 10 professionals making sure, using hashing algorithms, that it's a one-way street. You can't re-identify these documents. Are we going to make money? Short answer, yes we are. It's going to take us 2 years until we start seeing cash inflows after the development of these projects. As you can see though, it's a pretty peachy growth development overall. I'll remind you, the telehealth industry is expected by most analysts on the web to multiply several times over in the next decade. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, it means 2 things. First, 2-year payback period for this project. By 2025, we will have broken even. Second, and most importantly, $50.3 million net present value. Now, for a company as big as Dropbox, $2.2 billion in revenue every year, this is just a couple % increase. So let's remember the point of this project. We're losing relevance in the cloud computing industry. By the maturity of this project, we're going to add 49.4 million novel users. Those people, by the way, are going to refer other people with a networking coefficient of 1.17. We calculated that. It was very fancy. And second, these are long-term customers. These are people, their medical documents are stored there. It's hard to switch IT systems. In most cases, that would be working against us, but because of the fragmented nature of this industry, it's an opportunity, and we seek to take it. So let's recap. Dropbox has been falling behind. Our competitors got smart, and we didn't. In an effort to fix that, we're going to enter the telehealth industry, take advantage of our decentralized global approach, and use that as an advantage. It's going to have $50 million net present value, 50 million new users. And let's think about why we're doing this in the grand scheme of things. 100 million people go into medical poverty every year because of unavoidable care. The telehealth industry cuts down the cost of primary visits by a factor of 2 or 3. by being part of that industry, we can do a lot of good for a lot of people. And that's all I did at that. Thank you.
Really nice, team presentation, great slides, no clutter. I love the implementation timeline. So well done. My question is, most companies, the way they internationalize is by taking existing products or services into new markets. Right? So is there something wrong with what Dropbox has done? Its revenue has been growing, its market share has jumped to 40% over the last couple of years. Why not take what they have into new markets rather than spend 18 months or 2 years in developing something new for a new industry sector?
I can answer that. Why would we want to stop growing? It seems like we're able to develop this product at a relatively minimal cost and keep long-term users with the implementation of this new initiative. In order to stay relevant, we have to keep updating it like our competitors, Google Drive, Microsoft Azure, are doing. Does that answer your question?
So why not take what you have, which is already developed, proven, secure, great features, differentiated, into new markets, right?
Yeah, that is a very great question, and we would love to take what we have, but we have seen this trend in globalization where there are people in other markets in other countries that are reluctant to allow foreign companies to enter and do business and sell products. So that's why we've developed this plan to expand our data centers there so we can become a local company, hence our strategy on localization, so customers can feel safe storing their data in their home country and be more familiar with our services in that way. And telehealth is one of the ways we intend to penetrate those markets once we have data centers there to be able to support the data and secure the data there, is that we can reach people who are underserved medically as well as in our domestic markets. Something we think is a two-pronged approach, where we can serve our current market but expand upon other markets using telehealth where they don't have adequate medical services.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I think it was thinking outside the box to try to incorporate telehealth. So just so I'm clear on the vision, so with the digital record management, would this be something that the physicians and their groups are uploading, or the patients are uploading this information?
Right, so it would be the institution and the doctor that would be automatically uploading it into the patient's file. And that benefits both the doctors and the hospitals as well as the patients because it clears up having a huge messy filing system for both back-end and front-end users.
So I go to Scripps Health, and I can access my records on their system. And so the pitch would be, if you partner with Dropbox, there'll be a better system for your patients to access the medical records.
Yes, not only that, but because Dropbox is a global infrastructure, let's say we use MyChart, right? It's something that already exists, but it's very niche to certain areas and communities. The thing that we're pitching is you can use Dropbox anywhere because it is so decentralized and there's so many local offices around the world. No matter where you go, or let's say we end up moving to New York after school, we'll still be able to have all those files in one place, even if we switch providers or go to different hospitals.
So if you switch providers, then did you guys think through the responsibility of the privacy? You mentioned HIPAA, so as it's switching providers, have you guys thought through the shifting of who's responsible for the data integrity? Is it always Dropbox that'll be responsible?
Yeah, I could tackle this. That's the core part of this plan, actually. The reason that we're hiring a team of 10 cybersecurity professionals is to make sure that wherever we're going and updating these protocols, that it's encrypted in compliance, up to date with whatever country it's in.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that's really innovative as far as product development, looking at a new business customer, kind of echoing my fellow judge's comments. I would like to hear more about how you would expand it in other industries in the B2C. I think it's a great opportunity to keep expanding, but not ignoring all the other sectors that Dropbox is currently doing business in, and how to keep capturing more of that market share as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do appreciate your comments and mentions because that is important. We see telehealth as just the first step before we expand into other industries. But thank you.
Can you go back to the slide that how it will work, I think it was?
Correct. We're selling to the business, the telehealth companies.
So it's a competitive advantage for me to pick Sharp versus Kaiser because I get to see all of my information, right? So if I leave Kaiser and I go to Sharp, it goes with me, is that correct?
The idea is that essentially Dropbox has, or DropDoc has everything that you need, all of your information and records from a bunch of different providers. So you have your DropDoc account, and say I was with MyChart for my medical needs through like a hospital, and so they would upload my records to my personal DropDoc account. However, my dental records from another provider possibly are also being uploaded, and if I move, they're still there, and so all of my past records are in one place.
So I actually really like the idea because it's the case study talks about word of mouth, right? So if it's a quick win and you're using telehealth and healthcare as a way to get eyeballs, and you're like, oh wow, not only can I store my medical records, but I can actually store my banking records too when I have to go do taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah, that definitely has to do with our long-term goal, and if Ruben wants to touch on it, we actually dove further into the networking effect, or the network effect, as we saw that to be a key portion of the case and a key advantage that we could utilize.
I could glean over really quickly. If in economics, the money multiplier effect is kind of a good analogy for this, where you have a certain number of people, and each one of them refers another certain number of people, and they refer a certain number of people. We actually calculated exactly how much that is. It's about 17%. So the 50 million new users that we have just because of this project actually gets multiplied down the line, which is how we see this as an advancement in the B2C section of Dropbox.
On one of the slides, you had a figure of $10.4 million in data center costs.
Yes. Here, I can go a little bit further
Not
into
this one.
Not this one?
I didn't see this. This is some other. Yeah, my question was, what other costs? Yeah, what other costs have you considered? Like technical specialists, Salesforce costs, right? So what other key costs are involved? Because 10 million seems, even for data center, it seems low. Just figure in the air, it seems low.
I hate to keep flashing this one, but we did think about that, and actually the upkeep of these is going to be much more expensive than the initial cost of it. The $10.85 million that we had.
Yeah, what other costs are involved? Is this just data center costs, or is there more to it?
Yes, it was, and there's a couple other ones that we can see here in the cash flow projection also. There's the sales, which is even bigger than the costs for the development of the product itself. The cybersecurity professionals are very expensive, at $96 an hour, which will take 1,000 labor hours in order to develop this. So we did think about these: the personnel to develop it, personnel to upkeep it, the depreciation of them, and the cost of the initial land and construction.
And the total is still about 10 billion.
10 million initially, but as you can see, it's long-term integrated in the outlook.
So let's say you're pitching this to Scripps, and they say, well, we're kind of concerned because we manage the data, we have control over how the client accesses it. If they download it and do whatever with it, that's on them. But, we want to make sure we have control of the storage because we don't want to get sued. And so what if they are saying like, hey, we like the idea, but what if you get hacked and then someone sues us? Like, what would you say to them?
Well, thank you for that question. It's definitely very valid and something we took very seriously with cloud data and privacy protection. Scripts would upload the data as we discussed earlier. Once you have the data, as you said, you can do what you'd like with it. But we always have maintained security and data protections, and DropDoc would work with Scripps as a partner rather than just kind of end in line where whatever happens after Scripps uploads to DropDoc is the end of story. They would constantly be working together with the patient, and the patient would be responsible for their data, but DropDoc would maintain a consistent relationship with telehealth or other hospitals to ensure that the data is protected and secure, as well as that mathematics solution that we had before with hiring cybersecurity experts to prevent the data from ever going backwards and only going forwards from Scripps to DropDoc to the consumer.
So could you touch upon,
Yes, I'm glad that you asked that. We have two appendix slides. One of them is the tax benefits actually of entering in Brazil. Tax reductions and informatics. We chose the city, region, and country specifically for these benefits. As you can see there, they offer an import tax reduction of 88%, but on informatics, it's even better because it's relative to whatever we produce and output. Therefore, the potential for tax reductions can be even greater. And so this area is very good, other than tax reductions and financial incentives. It's very far inland, so it's very far from any natural disasters. Also, they have a cheap renewable energy source for the data center there. And going to the plant in the data center in Lagos, Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria is actually one of the best cities to conduct business in Africa. They also are very international. They have a lot of talent there, high educational institutions, and that's where a lot of people move. It's one of the most popular ports in Africa. And so that's where we chose that one as well.
Any data which swayed your decisions on, any data on the telehealth industry sector and the market potential in that area, in these continents?
Yes.
Considered?
Yeah, we considered it because in Nigeria, for example, internet access has increased tenfold there because of how rapid development has been, but there's been no service providers to meet those customers who have just gotten internet through their smartphone. Therefore, that's why we chose to go with the rationale of providing telehealth to these new users on the internet, because no one is offering them telehealth services or such. And also why we decided to put the data there, because once we have more customers, we want to establish ourselves in our data centers first so we can serve them in the future.
So you're saying that the telehealth industry, say in Nigeria, largely Africa, is in the kind of embryonic stage, right? And your goal is to develop that sector in as much as gain revenues from it.
Absolutely, and we foresaw the issue and the subject matter of data protections and how governments around the world are wanting to protect and maintain the data in their home countries. And so that's why we are being preventative and taking the initiative to make sure that we comply with this growing trend of data security, as many countries are not allowing the data of their citizens to be exported, and we have to keep it in the continent and in the markets we operate in.
I would just reiterate, I think it's very innovative that you guys looked at the portability of healthcare data. It's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed. There's obviously like legal concerns that's making it kind of cumbersome, but I think, looking at that space and seeing can Dropbox do something innovative was thinking outside the box. So kudos for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we decided also to focus in that area specifically because compared to Microsoft Office or Google Drive, for example, the US government is able to overlook these services, and so people are reluctant to store any important or like very secure files on these platforms globally because they don't trust the US government. And so this is where Doc and Dropbox serves a tremendous opportunity because they have the data offices in these different locations, and so it will be only their local government who would potentially be able to see it.
Yeah, I'll just finish with a couple comments. As I mentioned, I thought it was an interesting idea that you're using the baby boom generation is living longer. Gen X is getting older. They're having the population is growing. So you've taken something that's relevant and you thought, let's capitalize on that. So I think that's very, very smart. I do agree with Joe in the end, but there's some fine-tuning things in terms of the process, how that actually goes from start to finish. And also it's a little unclear to me about who the actual end user is. I think once you get to the consumer, so really your play, if I understand correctly, is a B2C play.
It's a B2B focus, and indirectly that will help our B2C. So because we're mainly focusing on expanding with these businesses and telehealth companies, by our network coefficient and word of mouth, the more that they start using Dropbox, because they're already gonna have it on their phone, right? Because they have to, that's where they access all their medical records. It is going to the consumer, so it's customer facing, and it impacts both the businesses and the consumers. So just to say it one more time, just more clearly, it is B2B, but it indirectly impacts the B2C sales as well, and will rise that. But instead of focusing so much on capitalizing that, we already have such a great opportunity and market, as we mentioned before, to go into telehealth and in turn make a rise within our customer base.
So, I think you guys had a slide of what the portal would look like. Was it branded Dropbox? As far as the landing page, when a patient, okay, so it is branded Dropbox. There won't be any sort of branding of the actual doctor that's currently.
Right, so that would be within the category itself. So, like, are you saying like a specific doctor?
Well, if someone has let's say Scripps, and Scripps is uploading their information, does anything say Scripps, or is that information just within the files?
Oh, they could be within the files, but they can also be filtered through Script too. So you can choose, like, the tab that says organized, Dropbox already has like a really great automated organization system where you can filter it however you would like. This is just one example of maybe someone, I think I would benefit from seeing my optometry or dental bills instead of seeing like Everett Clinic versus some other company. So, but the Dropbox landing page already has those capabilities, and DropDoc would just be another extension. It's kind of like another tab on your phone.
So, I wonder if this, just thinking through this, if there would be a way for the consumer to say, if I agree to have my provider upload my medical records, then I'm waiving any sort of HIPAA requirements that the provider has. And if that was, you think the consumer would accept that and say, okay, well, this is kind of similar to if I just downloaded the information and put it in Dropbox myself. Do you think a consumer would let the medical provider off the hook for?
Absolutely not, and we wouldn't ask them to. No, the key part of this is that the provider and the end user are actually both people accessing the data that's stored at the Dropbox server, the data centers that we were mentioning earlier. And looks like we might be out of time. But